For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On one morning in 1999, 23-year-old Owen Calder, a gap-year traveler full of adventure, left his temporary base camp near the Juruá River in Acre, Brazil, for a deep jungle trek towards a remote Maloca. He never returned. Despite an extensive investigation involving local river pilots, experienced guides, and a desperate international search, Owen Calder vanished without a trace into the vast, unforgiving Amazon. For 22 agonizing years, his family lived with soul-crushing uncertainty, clinging to the thinnest thread of hope. Then, in 2021, a perplexing discovery was made by ethnographers: a unique palm fiber mask, painted with urucum and ash, found deep within the rainforest. This is the complete investigation into what truly happened to Owen Calder and how a long-lost artifact finally spoke. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. Owen Calder, a 23-year-old gap-year traveler, arrived in Brazil in 1999, driven by an insatiable thirst for adventure. Like many young explorers of his generation, he sought experiences beyond the well-trodden paths, an authentic immersion into the world's most formidable landscapes. This ambition led him deep into the remote state of Acre, a vast, largely undeveloped expanse in western Brazil, where the Amazon rainforest asserted its dominance with unparalleled intensity. His destination was specifically the headwaters of the Juruá River, a region notorious for its isolation, its impenetrable vegetation, and its capacity to humble even the most prepared. Here, the jungle was not merely a backdrop. It was an active, overwhelming force, a living entity that demanded respect and offered little quarter. Calder's planned expedition was an ambitious undertaking, a solitary hammock trek designed to penetrate further into the rainforest's interior than most dared. This was not a guided tour for tourists, but a venture requiring significant self-reliance, rigorous preparation, and an acute understanding of the jungle's unforgiving nature. His ultimate objective was a remote Maloca, an indigenous communal dwelling situated far beyond established routes, a place of traditional life known only to a select few who navigated the intricate waterways and hidden trails. He intended to spend time with the community, to learn and observe, before embarking on his return journey to the relative safety of civilization. The critical moment arrived when Owen Calder failed to check back to base camp as scheduled. In an environment where communication was a precious and often precarious lifeline, this was not merely a missed contact. It was a breach of a pre-arranged safety protocol, an ominous silence that immediately signaled profound trouble. The initial alarm was visceral for those awaiting his return, particularly his guide, Renata Ray Barbosa, who possessed an intimate understanding of the jungle's inherent dangers. The dense canopy, the sprawling, undifferentiated terrain, and the omnipresent threats of the Amazon offered countless ways for an individual to become disoriented, injured, or simply disappear without a trace. As the hours stretched into days and then weeks, the stark realization solidified. The jungle, with its indifferent power and ancient secrets, had seemingly swallowed Owen Calder whole. His journey into the heart of the Amazon had ended, not with a triumphant return, but with an inexplicable vanishing act, leaving behind only questions and an unsettling, impenetrable void. Renata Ray Barbosa did not hesitate. The failure of Owen Calder to report back was an immediate and grave signal, one she understood intimately, from years spent navigating the complex arteries of the Amazon. Within hours of his overdue check-in, she marshaled what resources were available in the remote Juruá River region. Her first call was to Jairo Beltran, a seasoned river pilot whose knowledge of the waterways and seasonal floodplains was unparalleled. Beltran, with his small, sturdy boat, became the crucial link, transporting search parties and supplies through the labyrinthine network of tributaries and flooded forests, often battling against strong currents and hidden obstacles. The search itself was a brutal, arduous undertaking. The Amazon rainforest, while breathtaking in its biodiversity, is an unforgiving environment for any organized search effort. Its sheer vastness swallowed any sense of scale, rendering conventional grid searches nearly impossible. The vegetation was relentlessly dense, a wall of interlocking canopies, tangled vines, and thick undergrowth that allowed visibility for only a few feet at a time. There were no clear paths beyond the main river channels and the occasional barely discernible indigenous trails which quickly vanished beneath the encroaching flora. The isolating nature of the headwaters region meant that outside assistance was slow to arrive and often ill-equipped for the specific challenges of such a hostile terrain. Resources were critically limited. The search relied heavily on local knowledge, the keen eyes of those accustomed to reading the subtle signs of the jungle, and sheer human determination. Modern technology, such as satellite imagery or drones, was either non-existent or impractical in the dense canopy of 1999. Teams, often comprising Barbosa, Beltran, and a handful of local volunteers, pushed through swamps and thickets, navigating by sun and memory, their efforts hampered by torrential rains and the constant threat of wildlife. They scoured the likely routes toward the Maloka, the riverbanks, and any discernible clearings. Yet despite their exhaustive efforts, no trace of Owen Calder emerged. There were no discarded belongings, no broken branches, no footprints, no definitive sign of his passage. As weeks turned into months, the grim reality began to settle. The initial urgency faded, replaced by a heavy sense of futility. After extensive but ultimately fruitless efforts, the official search operation was reluctantly called off. Owen Calder's disappearance became another cold case lost to the Amazon, a perplexing mystery that offered no answers, only the enduring silence of the rainforest and the haunting question of what precisely had happened to the young traveler. The relentless march of time, indifferent to human suffering or unanswered questions, began its slow work. The initial frantic searches for Owen Calder, once fueled by desperate hope and adrenaline, faded into memory, replaced by the grim reality of an unsolved vanishing. The year 1999 receded, giving way to the new millennium, then another decade, and eventually 22 years elapsed since the young traveler's ill-fated trek into the Amazonian interior. With each passing year, the possibility of finding him alive diminished to near impossibility, and the trail, already cold, became completely frozen. Owen Calder's status officially shifted from missing person to a case file gathering dust in a remote police station, a name on a list of those presumed lost to the jungle's unyielding embrace. His passport remained unrenewed, his bank accounts untouched, his digital footprint a static echo of a life abruptly halted. No new witnesses emerged, no lost artifacts surfaced, no whispered rumors offered a fresh lead. The Amazon, a vast repository of lost souls and forgotten narratives, had added Owen Calder to its silent archives, another name swallowed by its impenetrable depths. The silence surrounding his disappearance was absolute, a profound void that offered no explanation, no closure. The initial theories, a jaguar attack, a fall, a fatal encounter with an uncontacted tribe, remained just that. Theories, unsupported by any shred of evidence. His fate settled into an inactive state, devoid of any new information that could reignite the investigation. Owen's story became one of the Amazon's many unresolved tragedies, a young traveler whose vibrant journey ended abruptly and without explanation, leaving behind only an enduring mystery. For his family, the absence of a body meant an enduring, agonizing uncertainty, a perpetual state of limbo. For the world, Owen Calder became another statistic, a cautionary tale of the jungle's indifferent power, presumed lost to its depths, his story sealed by an impenetrable silence. The prevailing assumption was that the wilderness had simply proven too formidable, too cunning, and had ultimately claimed him as its own. 2 decades had passed since Owen Calder vanished into the Amazonian vastness, his disappearance settling into the realm of unsolved mysteries. The year was now 2021, and deep within the same sprawling rainforest, far from any search party's previous routes, a new expedition was underway. This was not a rescue mission, nor was it a renewed investigation into a cold case. This team comprised researchers, ethnographers, and botanists, their purpose to document the rich, often unrecorded, cultural and natural heritage of the remote Acre region. Among them was Dr. Paulo Nascimento, a respected ethnographer whose life's work centered on the indigenous communities and their intricate relationship with the forest. His team was meticulously surveying an area along a lesser-known tributary of the Jurua, documenting plant species and searching for evidence of ancient settlements. It was during one such survey, as the team navigated a particularly dense section of forest, that an unexpected discovery was made. Partially concealed beneath a tangle of roots and decaying leaves near the edge of a seasonal floodplain lay an artifact unlike anything they had anticipated. It was a mask, crafted from woven palm fibers, its surface adorned with striking patterns of deep red uricum pigment and the stark contrast of dark ash. The craftsmanship was evident, suggesting a ritualistic or ceremonial purpose, a testament to the enduring traditions of the region's indigenous peoples. Dr. Nascimento, with decades of experience in Amazonian ethnography, recognized its immediate cultural significance. The mask was clearly of indigenous origin, a piece of material culture that could offer invaluable insights into the spiritual practices or historical narratives of the local communities. There was no immediate indication of its age, nor any visible connection to modern human activity. Its presence in such a remote and seemingly undisturbed location was intriguing, a silent sentinel from a forgotten past. The team carefully documented its position, photographed it extensively, and then, with meticulous care, retrieved the fragile artifact for transport back to their base camp and eventually to a specialized laboratory. No one among them could have imagined that this seemingly ancient object, collected for its anthropological value, unknowingly held a vital, personal clue to a decades-old disappearance, a silent witness waiting 22 years to speak. The palm fiber mask, once a silent sentinel in the remote Amazonian undergrowth, began its journey from the jungle's heart to a specialized conservation laboratory. Dr. Nascimento and his team understood the fragility of the artifact, especially given its organic composition and the humid environment from which it originated. Carefully packaged to preserve its structural integrity and any surface traces, it was transported through a series of flights and overland routes, eventually arriving at a state-of-the-art facility equipped to handle such delicate and culturally significant items. Here, a team of conservators, experts in the preservation and analysis of ancient textiles and organic materials, awaited its arrival. Their work began with a meticulous, systematic examination. Under controlled environmental conditions, the mask was placed under high-magnification microscopes. The conservators painstakingly documented every fiber, every brushstroke of uricum and ash, and every subtle imperfection in its construction. They sought to understand the materials used, the techniques employed by its maker, and any signs of wear or environmental degradation. The goal was to build a comprehensive profile of the artifact, discerning its potential age and cultural context, and to identify any foreign elements that might have adhered to its surface during its long repose in the forest. It was during this granular analysis that something unexpected emerged. Within the intricate weave of the palm fibers, particularly on the inner surface where a face would have rested, conservators detected minute residues. These were not merely environmental deposits from the jungle floor, but faint crystalline traces of what appeared to be dried sweat salts, alongside microscopic human skin cells and textile microfibers. The discovery was significant. It strongly indicated direct, prolonged human contact with the mask. While not uncommon for an artifact of this nature, the clarity and preservation of these biological traces were remarkable, suggesting a relatively recent, or at least well-preserved, interaction. Recognizing the potential human origin of these sweat salts and cells, a critical decision was made. Advanced forensic techniques, unavailable during the initial investigation into Owen Calder's disappearance in 1999, now offered an unprecedented opportunity. A minute sample of the biological material would be subjected to DNA analysis. This was a departure from the typical anthropological focus, pushing the boundaries of cultural preservation into the realm of forensic science. The hope was to potentially link the mask to a specific indigenous group, or at the very least, to confirm human use. The samples, extracted with the utmost care to avoid contamination, were then dispatched to a specialized genetics laboratory. The conservators and Dr. Nascimento awaited the results with academic anticipation, expecting to gain further insight into the mask's cultural lineage, or perhaps even its age through genetic markers. They were focused on the past, on the mask's ancient story, entirely unaware that the delicate biological fragments they had lifted were about to unlock an explosive personal history, connecting the artifact not to a forgotten tribe, but to a decades-old chilling mystery. The weeks that followed the dispatch of the genetic samples were filled with a quiet academic tension. Dr. Nascimento and his team anticipated detailed reports on mitochondrial DNA, perhaps offering insights into the mask's cultural lineage or the migratory patterns of its makers. The results, when they finally arrived, were anything but academic. They were not merely data points for a research paper. They were a bombshell that detonated the 22 years of silence surrounding Owen Calder's disappearance. The DNA profile extracted from the ancient sweat salts and microfibers within the palm fiber mask had yielded an undeniable hit. It was a match not to an unknown indigenous group, but to Owen Calder himself. The forensic laboratory's report was unequivocal. The genetic material belonged to the young backpacker who had vanished without a trace in 1999. The impossible had happened. A simple artifact, found by chance in a remote corner of the Amazon, had become the voice of a ghost, connecting the missing traveler directly to a piece of indigenous culture, from the very region where he disappeared. This revelation instantly ripped Owen Calder's cold case from the dusty archives, transforming it from a presumed tragedy into an active, unprecedented investigation. The Amazon had not swallowed him whole without leaving a witness after all. Beyond the astonishing DNA match, the analysis of the mask's environmental traces and the precise location of its discovery provided a pivotal new piece of information. The conservators had also identified minute pollen grains and sediment consistent with a very specific microenvironment, a seasonal floodplain trail. Crucially, this type of trail was known to be traversable only during periods of high water, when the rivers overflowed their banks, creating temporary navigable paths through otherwise impassable forest. This detail was groundbreaking. It suggested not only a particular, less obvious route Owen may have taken, but also a specific time of year for his journey, the high water season, a period when the landscape itself transformed. The mask, a silent testament, pointed directly to a path rarely used, known perhaps only to locals, and accessible only under specific transient conditions. This singular clue, embedded within the fibers of an ancient mask, redefined the entire search, directing investigators to a precise environmental context that had been utterly unknown for over 2 decades. The jungle had finally surrendered one of its deepest secrets. The astonishing DNA match from the palm fiber mask immediately galvanized authorities and researchers. Owen Calder's cold case, dormant for over 2 decades, was now a dynamic, high-priority investigation. Armed with the precise new lead, a seasonal floodplain trail traversable only during high water, a highly targeted search operation was swiftly launched. This was not the vast, undifferentiated search of 1999. This was a surgical expedition, guided by the specific environmental data gleaned from the mask and the geographical context of its discovery. Renata Ray Barbosa, whose initial desperate search had been met with only silence, was once again at the forefront, her intimate knowledge of the Juruá headwaters now fused with unprecedented scientific direction. Jairo Beltran, the river pilot, navigated the swollen waterways with a newfound purpose, his expertise directly informing the route. The new search focused on the precise coordinates of the mask's find, extending along the identified floodplain trail during a period of elevated river levels. This time, the Amazon, which had so effectively guarded its secrets, began to yield them. Within days, the search teams located definitive traces of Owen Calder's final journey along the very trail indicated by the mask. The dense vegetation, once an impenetrable barrier, now seemed to reveal a path that had been hidden in plain sight for 22 years. The resolution to Owen Calder's disappearance, once deemed impossible, began to unfold with chilling clarity. Evidence of his final days, his struggle, and ultimately his fate along that specific transient trail were meticulously uncovered. The palm fiber mask, once a simple artifact of indigenous culture, had transcended its original purpose to become the ultimate silent witness. Its existence, spanning decades in the humid earth, had preserved the microscopic fragments that forensic science finally unlocked. It was the mask that had connected the past to the present, the lost traveler to a specific location and a specific time of year. Its fibers had held the truth, waiting patiently for the technology and the curiosity to reveal it. The incredible journey of discovery, from a lost backpacker to a rediscovered artifact, and finally to a resolved mystery, stands as a testament to the power of forensic science and the enduring secrets held within the Amazon. Owen Calder's story, once a haunting enigma, was at last understood. The 22 years of agonizing uncertainty for his family and friends concluded with a measure of closure, brought about by the most unexpected of clues. The jungle had finally spoken, its ancient voice channeled through a simple painted mask, revealing the truth of a young life lost to its depths. Who,